Christine, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm grateful to be covered today by the grace of God and people. Barbara moved here in about 2018, and when I heard where she had come from in a meeting, I was like, why the hell would anybody move from California to Michigan, right? Come to find out that we got California gold. I've had the privilege of sitting in meetings with Barbara in such a way to hear her strong message of recovery that when she shares on an inspirational thought or on a literature, that she turns it in such a way that of a perspective that I've never actually thought before. There are very few people in this world that when they speak, I hear them and it actually sinks into my soul. And Barbara happens to be one of those people. It just makes sense to me what she has to say. And I do have a small quote from somebody who could not be here tonight. Barbara is tenacious about upholding the traditions that keep us healthy and safe. Her courage, confidence, and energy inspire so many others, especially me. And that is from Sandy C. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Barbara S.
Hello. Hello. My name is Barbara, and I am an alcoholic. Wow, aren't we lucky? I mean, look at all of us. We are here on Saturday night, and I haven't seen a single person drunk. Isn't that amazing? How many Saturday nights did you drink and think, oh my God, I'm never going to stop drinking? And look at us. We are magnificent. You know, the age of miracles is with us. Every single one of us is a miracle because we came from a place of hopelessness into a life of hope. And that is what happens here at Alcoholics Anonymous. So I don't speak for AA. This is just my own opinion, my own story. I grew up in a family that where there was no alcohol at all because there were alcoholism in the family, and so I was wanting to know what this alcohol thing was that I wasn't allowed to have. And as soon as I found out a way to get it, I was off and running. I blacked out the second time I drank. By the time I was 19, I had totaled 2 cars. And that second car that I totaled, it was on the Garden State Parkway. And I hit a car, and then I hit a guardrail, then I hit another car, and we were eating Chinese food, so there was Chinese food all over us, and it looked like blood, and it was really gory, and all I could remember is we got out of the car, and then we sat in the back seat, and I remember thinking to myself, I can't wait until the police get here, because maybe they can give me some help. Mind you, that was the first time I ever thought it was a good idea for the police to show up. But I quickly forgot that and went on with my drinking. And, you know, I mean, I can tell you all the horror stories, but every one of us has our own horror stories, right? I got drunk, I threw up, I fell downstairs, I harassed people, I heckled, I was a drunk. We were all drunk. You know, none of us got here because we were having a good time, right? If I was having a good time, I would have stayed there. I like drinking, but I wasn't having a good time. And so I had been in a relationship for 5 years. And this was the first person that had ever been kind to me. And I was like, I sucked it up because I did not have a kind childhood at all. And I sucked it up, and it was amazing, and she was kind to me, and one day she said to me, Barbara, you can stay here and be sober, or you can drink. And I didn't think twice about it. I walked in the bedroom, I packed up a backpack, and fell down a set of concrete stairs, landed on the sidewalk, picked myself up, and off I was. And my drinking took another couple steps bigger because now I no longer had anyone else watching to see how much I was drinking. So a bunch of things happened all together. So I was no longer living with her, so I needed housing. So we were in San Francisco, and I interviewed for a shared housing position. And I said, I hope there's not a lot of drinking going on in this house, because I really don't drink very much, and I'm very concerned about that. And the woman said, oh, that's fine, I'm a sober member of AA. I was like, fuck. But I moved in, and I started watching this woman, and I was like, wow, she's got a life, This is amazing. So one day, I was pretty drunk, and I called the AA hotline, because I never did anything sober, right? So if I'm going to call the AA hotline, I'm certainly not going to do it sober. So I called the AA hotline, I asked, what do you guys do in those meetings? And she said, well, why don't you come to a meeting and find out? I'm like, no, what do you do in those meetings? And she kept asking me where I lived. And I was getting really paranoid because I thought she was going to send the Alki police to my house to come pick me up and take me to a meeting. And really all she wanted to do was direct me to a meeting in my neighborhood. So I decide I'm going to go to the meeting, and I get really drunk because that's the only way I can handle it. And I was up in the belfry of a church, 3 levels up. And the meeting is over, and everyone was talking, and then they were holding hands. I was like, oh my God, get away. And when we're coming down the stairs onto the street, and I had showed up in my big black motorcycle with my black leathers and my black helmet, and I was so cool. And I sat down because I didn't think I could navigate the rest of the stairs because I was so drunk, and I didn't want to, fall down the stairs in front of all these people that wanted to hold my hand. And someone called my name, and I was horrified. And it turned out it was my next door neighbor. And she's like, are you in AA? And I'm like, no, I'm not. And she said, she walked me to a meeting the next day. And that woman walked me to a meeting at noontime, weekdays, 5 days a week for 2 years. I was also in a class, and I was taking an industrial trades class. And this noontime meeting I was going to made me late for the class, and so I told the teacher, I'm an alcoholic and I'm trying to get sober. And she said, that's great, I'm an alcoholic too, and I'm sober, and you just take whatever time you need and come back whenever you're ready. And I didn't put all those things together till much later, but all that happened in a very short period of time. So I got sober, and sobriety was everything to me. It was everything to me. And what happened for me is I started having stuff come up about childhood and a bunch of sexual abuse and trauma that had happened to me. And I'm like, I'm trying to deal with that stuff, and I'm going to AA, and I'm staying sober. And I'm trying to deal with that stuff, and it's making me nuts, and I'm going to AA, and I'm staying sober. And people kept saying to me, no matter what, don't drink. No matter what, don't drink. So when I got to the no matter what place, instead of drinking, I tried to kill myself. I'm not really sure how helpful that was, right? But I didn't drink. Jeez. Anyway, each of us has to go to different lengths in this program, and my lengths are not your lengths. And one of the lengths that I needed to go to, because I sort of mentally decompensated in my first bunch of years of sobriety, was I needed to be willing to go to the psychiatric hospital in order to stay safe. And sometimes I went there willingly, and sometimes the cops came to my house and put me in handcuffs and took me there. And God bless those police that did that. Because that enabled me. Someone used to say to me, just go to the hospital and just stay there until you can think better. And then you can make a better decision. And that's what I ended up doing. And I went in and out, I probably have enough frequent flyer miles to go to the hospital in Paris or something, So I kept coming to meetings, I kept being in the fellowship, and I kept scaring all my sponsors away because I had such a depth of mental health stuff going on, and people were scared to work with me. And so I got to another one of those places, of those no matter what places, those jumping off places. And it's like, I can kill myself or I can drink. And that was, I had about 8 years sobriety at the time. And I thought, I think I'll try drinking this time, because I'm not being very successful at killing myself, so I might as well try drinking. So I went in the store and I bought a single beer. And I went outside and I stood on the sidewalk in San Francisco and I drank that single beer and I drank about a third of it. I was like, oh my God, this is fabulous. And I went inside and bought a 6-pack. And then I started walking home and I passed another corner store on my way home and I bought a bottle of something. And by the time I got home, I was flat out ass drunk. And that woman who had told me that I could drink or leave, she stayed by me. We didn't live together all the time, but she stayed by me, and I will never forget the look on her face when she came home and saw me drunk, laying on the floor in the living room. I never want anyone to look at me like that again. I never want to look at myself like that again. We eventually moved from San Francisco up Northern California in the country, and there was a very tight little fellowship there. And I never stopped going to meetings, even when I drank. I drank for like 3 weeks, round the clock. From the minute I got up till the minute I fell asleep, I drank, and then and I kept going to meetings in between, because there was something, I just knew I had to hold on to this thing somehow, and that was my way of holding on. So we moved, and I was able to get in a very tight fellowship that talked a lot about the God of this program. And I didn't hear a lot of that in San Francisco because, we're just way too cool in San Francisco to talk about God. And people started talking about God and started talking about God working in their lives. And I just started listening, and I figured, there's no harm in listening, right? I can listen. I don't have to agree, but I could just listen and evaluate, and kept going to these meetings, and this may be a little, okay, here I am. So one day I thought, these people, they talk all about God. I'm gonna do an experiment, and I'm gonna see if God's really there. So I said, okay, God, I want you to show yourself to me today. And I was having a really bad day, and I did a lot of self-harm. I did a lot of cutting and drinking bleach and doing all that stuff. And I went to the store to buy razor blades, and the woman says, oh, we don't have them. We don't carry those. They didn't have the kind I wanted, so I went to another store to get them. And the woman looks me straight in the eye and says, we don't carry them. They're not safe. And I was like, okay, thank you. I get it, thank you. And from there, I had to develop my own concept of God, which likely is not the same as anyone else's concept of God. And that's the fabulous thing about AA, that we all get to believe what we want to believe, right? No one tells anybody what to do. And the other thing, the thing that I love about AA, I came to meetings drunk a lot. And when I first was getting sober, I went to this big women's meeting. It was like this meeting that everyone wanted to be seen at, and I was really drunk, and I walked in, and I had my bottle of vodka, and halfway through walking across the room, I dropped it on the floor, and it shattered. There's alcohol fumes everywhere, and I just kept right on walking and sat down in a corner and passed out. And woke up, someone shaking me with a big book, said, you have one of these? Do you have one of these? Oh my God, no. And I woke up the next morning and with my keys and a note from the person who gave me a ride home, who wasn't even from the area. She was from an hour and a half away, and where my motorcycle was parked, so I could actually find it the next day. And it was amazing. And so many people in San Francisco would see me over the years and they'd say, wow, Barbara, you're still sober? Anyway, I got to work the steps again in a whole new way with a higher power in my life, which is really different than working the steps without a higher power for me. And I developed a relationship with this higher power, and I started working the steps, and I learned about powerlessness. And it was like, wow, powerlessness, that's fabulous, because if I'm powerless over all these things, then I only have to look at these two things over here, and that's much more manageable than all these things I'm not powerless, that I'm powerless over. For me, it was really good news to be powerless. And step 2 invites me to begin a spiritual journey. And I picked up on that invitation. I took the invitation and began a spiritual journey, and that began in step 3. And I worked step 4, and my sponsor explained it to me. She says, you know, Barbara, if your hair's all messy like that, then step 4 is like a comb that you can run through your hair and separate one thing from the other thing, so that you can see what you have. And you can see what you need to get rid of and see what you can keep. And that was pretty amazing, doing my 4th step and my 5th step. Step 6, to me, is all about, are we willing to recover to our cores? You know, I can be in recovery, I can come to meetings and have the fellowship and make good crumble and do all that stuff. Completely lost my train of thought. But step 6 asks me, am I willing to recover to my very core? Am I really willing to give up those defects of character which worked for me for a long time? If they didn't work, I wouldn't have picked them up, but they worked, and now they no longer work. But the idea of going through my life without those defects of character that were my armor and protected me was really scary. And step 6 asked me to do that. It asked me to be willing. You know, I was at a meeting this morning and someone said, I don't know which came first, the grace or willingness. And I thought to myself, I had to have an enormous amount of grace before I could be willing, because I was not willing. And I worked step 8, I made my list, I did my amends, which was amazing. I did my amends with my mother, and we did our amends, and she said that she was sorry too. It was very amazing, and I figured it was going so well. I said, oh, by the way, I'm gay. And step 10 for me is just, it was a revolutionary step. What my sponsor had me do was, in writing every single night, was the first thing I would write down was what I did well that day. Because like so many of us, it's really easy to see what we do wrong and not see what we do well. So the first thing on my list was something I did well that day, or something I did well. The second column was something that was messy. It's not wrong. We're human beings. We are messy. We do messy things. But it's not, we don't do wrong things. We do messy things. And we get to clean up our messes. So that second column was what I did that was messy so that I could clean it up. And the third column was, where did I see evidence of God working in my life that day? Because I'm a show me kind of girl, right? I don't just pick this stuff up. I need like special glasses, you know? To see God in my life, I need to put on those special glasses, which was the 10th step. And I did that night after night after night after night for many years. And the 11th step has been difficult for me. It's been hard for me to engage in prayer and meditation, and it's something I continue to work on, and I continue to ask for willingness about how to do that. And then step 12, working with other people. I sponsor women, and I love sponsoring people because you watch these people that come in just as we all came in, so dark and crowded and in our disease, and we start to get a little bit better and a little bit better, and we start to blossom, and then you start to see people smile. It's like, oh, welcome to life, right? So I love to sponsor people. And then the last part of that, to me, is the most important part, is practicing these principles in all our affairs. The point of working all of the steps is to have the spiritual awakening. That's the point. That's why we work the steps. And when we have that spiritual awakening, and I don't want to say it that way. When we have that spiritual awakening, then all those promises start happening, right? Our whole attitude and outlook upon life changes. And fear of people and economic insecurity leaves us. And for me, I have had the opportunity to sponsor women who have trauma histories, and to show people how you take these steps of AA and you take whatever your life circumstances is and they work together. They were written, they are meant to deal with alcoholism, but I can use any one of these steps on anything that's going on in my life, including trauma. And that was revolutionary to me. So what it's like now, I moved from California to Michigan. And I cried every day for about a year and a half. And I had a lot of judgments because you guys just don't do AA right. You know, we do it much better in Michigan. But what I did is I immediately got into service because I know that service is what keeps me sober. And I became a general service rep for my home group. And I gotta tell you guys, getting into service at whatever level just, it rocks my world. It rocks my world. And so if you're just coming to meetings and maybe having coffee now and then and going home, you're missing the really good stuff. You got some good stuff, but you're missing the really good stuff. It's like you can get the free app on your phone, right? And it does some basic things. But if you want the premium app that has all the bells and whistles, you gotta pay. And paying is doing the work. And I want the premium app. I don't want just sobriety. I want recovery in all its gorgeousness and all its despair and all of it. Because all of it is me. All of it is me, and all of it is you. And life doesn't just go along on a straight line. You know, it's like I hear people that say, well, I came to AA, and I haven't had a drink since. And, you know, I got married, and I got the car, and I got the job, and I'm like, I don't want what you have. I mean, I do. I want what you have. But I don't necessarily, I relate so much more with people that have had to struggle to get this program because I have struggled and struggled. And what I have learned is that I need to be really open-minded. And that challenges me sometimes because I think I know the answers. Sometimes I think you guys know the answers, but mostly I think I know the answers. You know, I was thinking about something the other day about, you know, when one door closes, another door opens. And it's like, me, the open door is over here, and I'm still pounding on the closed door, saying, let me in, let me in. That's what I did about California. Let me come back. But I need to be open-minded because it's only when I'm open-minded enough that my heart opens. You know, and I can't do this program in my head. It's not a thinking program. It's a thinking disease, but it's not a thinking program. It's a heart program. And when I open my heart, then I get all these amazing connections, you know. Alcohol was a lie. it promised me friends and conviviality. That's a fun word, conviviality. But it was a lie, and I chased that lie and I chased that lie into dead end after dead end after dead end until I got here. And people held out their hands. And when it was hard, they said to me, Barbara, just take one more step. Just one more step. That's all you gotta do, one more step. And I spent a lot of time just taking one more step. And today I have a life that maybe is not what I would have chosen had I had access to a full range of options. But it's my path, and I get to walk it. I don't have to walk it. I get to walk it, and I have a pretty slow, small world. I had a head injury a number of years ago, and I can't work, and so many things in my life that I have thought were bad things ended up to be so many gifts, right? This head injury, I thought, oh my God, I'm out of the workplace, I got no money, It ended up giving me this opportunity to go really slow in my life, and not very many people get to have that opportunity. And so being open-minded about what comes my way and not judging it, and it's not like, I don't believe there's like one right path, and all the other paths are wrong, and so I have to figure out what's the right path. It's like, what door has the tiger behind it, right? But there's no right and wrong paths. If I go down this path, I'm going to learn these things, and I'm going to have these experiences, and I'm going to have this to share with other people. And if I go down this path, it's going to be different experiences, but I'm still going to get things. And so it takes so much pressure off of me to know there's no wrong path. I get up, I do my day, I talk to my higher power, I practice these principles in all my affairs. Every day, my prayer is that I get to walk through my day with integrity. That, to me, is the most important thing, And I have a friend who had a lot of the same kind of mental health history as me, and she did, in fact, kill herself. But one of the things she said that's always stuck with me, she says, even when you're falling on your face, you're still moving forward. Right? Uh-huh. And it talks about that in the 12 by 12. They said that we're going to have days where we try and we fail, but we can chalk them up as some of our greatest credits because we tried. And I'm not real good at using the telephone and having like people have posses, their little tribe, and they go to places together, and I've never had that. But I got my feet on the ground, I got my feet on the ground. I got God in my life. I got sobriety. I got people that I can call if I need to. That gal who told me I could drink and stay, she and I just celebrated our 40th anniversary. So, and as of about 10 years ago, she now has her own 12-step program, and it's been amazing. So one of the things I've just been thinking about recently, it came up in a meeting. I was thinking about when I sit with my sponsees and they tell me things, I don't have judgment. I don't shake my finger and say, "Oh, you stupid idiot, you shouldn't have done that." There's no shaming. There is just grace. It's like, okay, that happened. That was messy. Wasn't wrong. It was messy. And how can we do it better? And so one of the things that I'm trying to do, just in my own personal life, is to treat my partner with as much grace as I treat my sponsees. And a very interesting experiment. She'll be here next week. I love my life. It's not what I thought it would be. You know, I never envisioned I would live on Social Security disability in a state where there's snow and ice. And the first year we came here, there was a vortex from Canada, and we had a pantry, and all this stuff exploded. And I'm like, oh, welcome to Michigan. It's a we program. I can't do this by myself. And even if I am not very good at reaching out, I hold all these people in my heart. And I know there are so many people holding me, you know, including those people that would say, oh my God, Barbara, we didn't think you would ever get sober. They're holding me. And just the gift of walking through the world with an open heart is just amazing to me. I think that's all I've got. Thank you.